Hey, today we're making these two shelves. Let's go.
Hey guys, welcome back to Squirrel's Woodshop. This is Danny, and today we're going to show you how we made these beautiful floating shelves. And as a bonus, I'm also going to show you how I messed one up. Yeah, I did. So stick around and see if you can spot which one I actually messed up. So first we're going to take it to the miter station, cut off our links. Now I was originally going to run this through the planer first, but it had a pretty good twist in it, so I thought we could cut it up and kind of see if we could get rid of that twist. And it was definitely a lot better after we cut it up. But we still thought we better run it through the sled before we ran it through the planer. So here we go, we're just going to try to flatten one side of this with the sled. Now cutting it shorter got some of the twist out, but it did not help with the culping. As you can see, we got a pretty good culp in the center there. So we're going to try to get this side flat and then take it over to the good old planer. Now if you're waiting to see what I did wrong, well, I've already did it at this point. I just didn't show you. And I know what you're thinking. You've only did 2 steps. How could you possibly have messed it up in 2 steps? Well, I did. And if you think you know what I did, go ahead and write in the comments. We'll see if you got it right. So if you're keeping up, we've did one side with the router sled, flipped it over, did the other side with the planer, got it down to our thickness, and now we're doing the front edge of our floating shelf. And we'll also do the back too. So before we go to the next step, I guess I better tell you what happened. So I was running the planer sled, and yeah, it dug in. Keep in mind, these have already been planed, so it was a lot deeper than that before we got started with the planer. So we got this big hole, and it's not going to finish out to be 1.25 inches, 1.5 like we want it to be. So this is how we fixed it. We started out by taking some 4/4 board and ripping it right down the middle. Now this will give us 2 pieces. Now these 2 pieces are going to do 2 things. One is going to give us some more thickness, and 2 is going to give us some more width because we didn't have any piece big enough, wide enough. So we're now going to make these 1 wide piece. So we're going to pull out the old joiner. Whoa, wrong one. Like I was saying, we're going to get the joiner out, and we're going to run both them boards right through there so they match up just right. And another thing that's going to help us out is the grain pattern is going to match up really nice. So it'll be hard to tell that there's 2 pieces of wood stuck together there. Now we got all the wood cut. It's time to glue it all together. So here we're just going to smother this thing in glue. Now we're going to be real careful and not get it all the way to the very edge where it's going to glue up to the next piece at, just so we don't have any issues with it butting up to each other. And then we did what any, professional woodworker would do. We killed it with clamps. One might say we overkilled it with clamps. Either way you look at it, there's one thing I do know. However many clamps you put on, you gotta take off. And it usually takes a while. Well, we finally got all the clamps off, and then it was time to take it to the table saw. Now it's very important that you get your measurement right. So you gotta take your measurement, and then Squirrel comes and does his measurement, and then I come back and check his measurement. That's pretty standard, right? Whew. Okay, now we got that figured out. It was time to rip them down to our widths. Now this side had already been jointed on one side, so all we had to do was run it through the table saw, and there you go. Now you see that piece we just cut off? Keep that in mind. We're going to need that in a little bit. Here's our mess up board that we had, and basically we're just stripping off that excess. so we can make it look all pretty here in just a little bit. But before we take her to hair and makeup, we need to slim her down a little bit. She's a little chunky still. So we're going to run it through the planer a little bit, get a good measurement on it so we're matching the other one that was already finished to the right size. Now if you've ever wondered what it's like to really work in Squirrel's woodshop, well, here's just a little preview of what it's like. So if you can understand hand gestures, jibber jabber, and a few broken sentences, you'd probably be alright in there. So now that we got the board as thick as we want it, we need to put a good straight edge on it. Because if you were going to look down the front of this thing, you would see the original board and then a real thin board on top of that. Now here's where the makeup comes in. We're basically going to just cover all that up with that one piece that we cut off with the table saw earlier. So we're going to slap a whole bunch of glue on this thing and clamp it down. And when the glue dries and we take all the clamps off, we'll cut it down to our length. And we'll essentially be back at step number 2 before we started this whole ordeal. Yeah, so all that was just to get to step number 3. So step number 3 consists of, you guessed it, sanding. And I can't think of a better way to sand than sand while watching the game. But, and it's probably not good to sand for a long period of time, you know, carpal tunnel and everything. So every now and again, you got to kind of take a break. Can't be too careful when it comes to your safety. So a little backstory on these shelves. These shelves are going in my little girl's bedroom. So I'm not really worried about the customer being too upset about, you know, having 2 different pieces of wood stacked on top of each other, just glued up. That's not going to be an issue. What the main issue that we ran into here is connecting this to the wall. Now, I'm sure there's 1,000 different ways you could have done it, but we're going to use dowels. And since there's only about 3 studs that we can hit, we didn't need to mess up any of them. So what we've got here is just a collared sleeve for the drill bit. And all it's going to do is just kind of guide it in the right direction. And at this point, we have already drilled the studs in the wall. And now it's just a matter of transferring those same holes over onto our wooden shelves. Now, like I said, these shelves are for my little girl for her birthday. And we really only got just a few hour window to get all this done and installed before she knows what's going on. So after we got all the holes drilled, it was just a matter of throwing them in there. And it actually worked out pretty good. We did put some wood glue on both the studs, the dowels, and the shelves. And when the glue dried, that thing was hard as a rock. And it wasn't going anywhere. And now that you've seen both of them, let me know which one you think was messed up. And if you made it this far, thanks for watching. And as always, God bless you.